Hey everyone, I'm Mike Lowe, and we are in Front Office Football 9, a classic simulation football series, the ninth edition, of course, released earlier this year. And you're already looking at the results of our first 4 weeks of the season. We're going to talk in this episode about how we got here, how things are looking. You're seeing quite a bit on the screen already, such as the Raiders being 2-2 and leading the division, and two of our key players who are out with injuries. And we're going to get into all of that here. But I wanted just to kind of show you where we were at first, and then we're going to kind of work backwards from there to kind of see how we got up to this point. So again, appreciate you checking out the video. We're going to be talking really just through a lot of football strategy. I know this isn't a Madden series, but there'll also be some comparisons we'll be doing between a game like Madden and a game like Front Office Football, and of course the real NFL too, as we start looking at deeper stats. So this is not like a gameplay stream or anything like this. This is much more about kind of diving into a sports simulator. We're going to be looking at a few things here as we've reached kind of the first quarter of this season with the Las Vegas Raiders. And if you missed the little intro video, I did do one about a week and a half ago or so, just kind of introducing it. Back from the Thanksgiving break here, so we're ready to kind of dive back in. So thanks for being patient with that. So doing all of this live here, we're really just going to go through. I got a little checklist of a few things I wanted to show you. And again, keep in mind, we're in week 4. So I'm showing you some things even that'll be kind of topics I wrote down for myself from the preseason. And we'll kind of see how that even matches up here as we're a quarter of the way through the season. So this is our team roster, of course, and if you're unfamiliar with this game, really the place you want to probably look most here is the player's current rating, their future rating, 59, 55, these sort of things. These are good players. A 78 is an exceptional player. I think it maxes out at 80. And so, or actually, it maxes out at 100, but I think at 80, the player is considered like one of the top tier players in the league. And so, you got someone like Garoppolo, someone like Josh Jacobs, who are considered, really, really solid players in the league there. And so just kind of looking through that, I mean, what I was just kind of doing is like looking at this team's strength. Of course, Crosby, the best player on the team. It's a little worrisome sometimes when your punter's your second best player, but there is some talent here. I think what I really took away is that this team going into the season was we had some top end talent, but it wasn't very deep. And if we had some injuries or something like this, it was really going to stretch us and really going to test us. And so, having said that, too, the beautiful thing, or at least one of the beautiful things of front office football, is that the ratings will fluctuate pretty frequently. And we're seeing that now more in a game like Madden. But this game does a really good job of letting kind of the ratings, I guess, reveal themselves as time goes on. And that's especially true when you're in the preseason, and it's even more true when the player is younger and maybe not as your coaching staff's not as familiar because those ratings are coming from like a collection of your coaching staff's like feedback to you as sort of the pseudo general manager that you're playing as. And so it makes a lot of sense and it kind of reflects back to or resembles a game such as like head coach '09 where you were kind of seeing this read up players where it's like, oh, this guy might have an 86 potential out of 100. That's really wild. But then when the dust settles after the preseason, maybe he's more like a 65 overall or something like that. And so I think that's really cool, super realistic. So keeping that in mind, I wanted to start this franchise by not getting too crazy, not making huge decisions. I mean, I was seeing players, for instance, like Trey Tucker, who you look here, he's a 12 overall, which is pretty bad, 19 overall potential. I mean, that's pretty rough, but he's a third round pick. And of course, he's still rated this in 4 weeks into the season, but it's because he hasn't dressed. So we just don't know. So there's an instinct here, especially for us used to playing Madden and things like this, where it's like, oh, Trey Tucker, he's trash, get him off the team. But here you're sacrificing his bonus money and stuff like this. And I just don't know. He's not looking great. So maybe this is like the feedback we're getting from practice. But there's no way I'm cutting a guy who, even though I didn't pick him, he was a third round draft pick here for the Raiders at the start of the season. So just kind of keeping him on the shelf for now. We'll see if Trey Tucker gets, or someone like Trey Tucker gets into the game as we go. So my general approach was really take things slow, see how things unfold, and we'll just kind of learn as we kind of go through this season. Because trust me, and I'll get into how we got here. It's been really weird. It is not the path. I'm not surprised, I guess, at a 2-2 start. I'm super surprised at how we got here, and I'll get into that. So when I started this franchise, I had 60 players on the roster. I had to cut that down. I'm sorry, I think we had 70, and I had to cut it down to 60. So there are 10 players I had to cut. There's really nothing there to report. They were just kind of older players who weren't good. There were players that maybe it just didn't really look like a fit. Like one player that was really borderline, probably the last guy to make the team was actually Hunter Renfro. You can see a 34 overall. That sounds terrible, but that's about like average, maybe slight below, probably slightly, I would consider it slightly below average player. Reason I didn't want to cut him is his contract just has a lot of bonus money. Of course, we would save a ton of cap. But again, just like with the younger players, Hunter Renfro's had a good career. I don't want to just give up on him. And so I wanted to kind of see how it would work, especially as we start seeing the new chemistry dynamic that this game has, hint, hint, Madden, of how quarterbacks and receivers start to have chemistry with one another, which is super cool. It's a throwback to front office football 8, where you had chemistry across really your whole team. But now, and that's still there. You still have like a passing offense chemistry and things like that. But this is now broken down into a deeper level where it's the actual quarterback and a particular receiver. And so you can see he has different relationships with different quarterbacks. And same thing, the different quarterbacks are going to have different relationships with their receivers, which I think is just super, super cool. So anyway, I did a lot by not doing much at all, if that makes sense. I did cut the roster down, and then really we just kind of got into things. It wasn't really anything too crazy. We went 0-3 in the preseason. That doesn't really make a damn of difference to me. The joke around with I'm a Lions fan, as most of you know, but the joke with the Lions when they went 0-16, they went 4-0 in the preseason, and so there's a hilarious T-shirt going around if you haven't seen it, where it's like they were the preseason champions of the 2000 and whatever it was 8 season or whatever, and it's just ridiculous. So we went 0-3. I don't care. We made very minimal moves. We were watching things unfold, and we weren't falling in love on the other side with like eye candy of like somebody like I signed a running back here in free agency just to kind of fill out the roster, and he was rated a lot higher. Solomon Sanchez here. He's an undrafted running back out of Michigan State. Shout out to Walled Lake, Michigan there. And he came in rated higher. I think he had like potential into the 50s, which again, we established earlier is good. It's a good player. And he was more like maybe like a 46, 52 or something like this. I was like, oh, wow, this is a really nice depth piece. Let's go and get him on a rookie deal. This is great. He even accepted a deal that had no bonus money attached to it. But when we get a closer look at him, he's a 35, 38. He hasn't been great, but he's been okay. He's kind of filled out the role. And so again, I think that's really cool and fairly realistic. And so let's see. So yeah, very, very minimal moves. We weren't trusting the eye candy. That was the point I was making there, was like also not falling in love with players who might be way overrated. And then like you're cutting, say, a Josh Jacobs because you're like, no, I think the future is Solomon Sanchez. Maybe, but we just don't know yet. So I think that's a really key point as you play through it. In the second preseason game, Max Crosby went down with an injury. And guys, it's bad. It's not good. He has a compound shin bone fracture. He, as of this point, 4 weeks into the season, is going to be 20 weeks until he's full strength. He should not play. He, I believe, was assessed. Yeah. So what's cool is like you'll get an injury report. This game simulates day by day now, which is awesome, right? So we're on Monday, October 2nd up here. And this excuse me, on August 27th, we got the note that, yeah, this is a bad injury. It's very, very serious. We're evaluating him to see if surgery is going to be required. 2 days later in game, we get the feedback that surgery is required. This is awesome. When we're talking detail of what we want in football games, we're not talking about mouthpiece color. We're talking about something like this, or at least I am, and I'm assuming some of you, if you are still watching this video. So that's a huge thing here, and it's awesome. Good job, Jim Gindren, who's the developer of this game. That's super, super, super cool. So anyway, he goes down. Of course, without being said, he's one of the better players, not just on our team. He is the best player in our team. He's one of the better players in the entire league. So to lose this guy in the preseason is rough. Shout out to my undergraduate alumni there, Eastern Michigan. So very, very cool, but very, very sad to see Max Crosby go down there. So very, very surprising and scary. But again, something that Madden probably wouldn't make you deal with too much. So we lose Max Crosby. The other injury that's been really, really freaky is not only do we lose perhaps our best defensive player, but we lost one of our best offensive players who was playing really well. Now, this is regular season week 1. Jimmy G goes in, 93%. Oh wow, yeah. So so his completion percentage, right? 90. I was thinking, is that his QB rating? That's his completion percentage, 31 of 33. This guy was lights out in week 1, a game that we won. And Average 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, QB rating of 133. This is awesome. But torn MCL in his knee in the fourth quarter, done for the year. Re-injury risk, moderate. I mean, his career may be in doubt. I mean, this is a huge, huge thing. Same thing here, September 10th to 12th, surgery required. So we lose two huge players before we're even finished with the first game of the season. So obviously that's a huge storyline, and it's just been kind of, I don't know, we're just swimming, kind of trying to keep our head above water there. And so that's really been kind of the I guess two of the bigger stories. If we just take a look around here at the standing section, again, this isn't the prettiest screen. I'm really hoping front office football, again, they were so close. They're partnering with out of the park developments to try and clean some of this up. So it is a little hard to see and kind of make sense of what you're seeing. But here we are, Vegas. We are 2-2. We're atop our division. But to me, we need to be very, very careful with this because to me, we're a bit of a fraud. We're points 493 points against 111. That is not good. We're going to get into some more of this later, but I wanted to show you what our schedule looked like first. And so I think I can do that here by going up the team schedule. So we won this first game 28-27. It was pretty wild. And the reason we won is because oh, there it is, game book. The reason we won is they missed an extra point in the first quarter. That's the only reason. We could do nothing to stop these guys. And we'll talk more about this in this video as well. We could do nothing to stop these guys in the first half. It was 27-14. And I mean, thank goodness we were able to keep pace a little bit with the offense. And then the second half, coaching staff really turned it around and was able to get us into a position to win the game, which we did on really, really late in the fourth quarter there, under 3 minutes to go. And that's by that point, Brian Hoyer had come in for the injured Garoppolo and so on. So really, really interesting game there. The next game, we lose against the Bills. Not a huge surprise there. They really just dominated this game. We were leading in the first half, 14-10, but kind of a flip. I guess scenarios were flipped here from game one to game two. We got shut out in the second half of that game. Pretty underwhelming. It was starting to feel a little bit bleak because we're this is our first game having to start Brian Hoyer. He did not play great. He threw for 351 yards, but on 56 attempts. I mean, that is not part of your game plan that you want. Your running back gets 9 yards on 12 carries and so on. So I mean, this game was a struggle. It was not pretty, and it was our first loss of the year, followed by our second loss of the year against Pittsburgh. This game we could stop no one. They could basically not stop us either, but it was gross. 40 points, 30 of which were in the first half. So I guess we played a better second half. We're a pretty bad first half team, it seems like, at least on defense. And so again, that puts us at 1-2. And then this last game, we just won on a last second field goal here. 30 seconds left. Daniel Carlson gives us the win. We were losing this game 13-3, another bad first half. 13-3 at the half, 14 points in the fourth quarter. We're able to get us back to 2-2 and oddly leading the division, which is really just kind of it's kind of wild, I guess. And so that's kind of an overview of looking at the kind of the basics, the kind of the lay of the land with the team. We are going to get into some more stuff here as we just kind of start looking through more details with the players and the Raiders themselves. So let's see, where do I want to go next here? I'm looking at my list. Yeah, I want to get into kind of like the team statistics because we just saw kind of the end of the road, some injuries, we're 2-2 and so on. But let's really talk about, I guess, just some of the different statistical things that we're seeing. So I want to go back to the standings page. And I want to talk a little bit about, I talked about the point differential. Let's see if I don't think I can highlight this. I cannot. But here we are. So the point differential, again, that's a bit of a fraud. It's just only 4 games in, so we don't need to freak out too much. But the other thing, strength of victory is something I want to talk about. So strength of victory, it says the total winning percentage of all defeated opponents. So now we've only had 2 defeated opponents, of course, but those teams we beat, they are a combined 25% winning percentage. So they're bad. We've beaten a couple bad teams. It's still early. We don't really know exactly what a bad team is per se, but nonetheless, it's not great, right? So I wanted to call that one out. The games themselves, if we go over and start looking at team statistics here, it's really interesting. So I'm going to click the team. We're going to come back to player later. And when we look at passing offense, what you're going to see here, I like to look at yards per attempt among a few other things. But even with our backup quarterback coming in, we're doing okay. So yards per attempt, 7.73. Again, kind of in the top third of the league there. That's pretty good. Yardage, we have a ton of yardage. We've been losing games and trying to, even games we're winning, we're losing late. So we're tops in the league actually in passing yardage and average per game, of course. Our touchdown to interception ratio, 9-3, that's pretty good, especially with our backup. Our pass interception percentage, again, statistics that we should be seeing in Madden. That information's there, we don't see it. Pretty good. Again, kind of the maybe middle bottom third of the league, but in a good way. So that's always good to see. And again, nothing really crazy. It's not like we're just getting a lot of like lucky 40-yard bombs or anything like that. And so that's really good to see. Again, QB rating here in the top third of the league. So overall, our pass offense is doing okay. I mean, Brian Hoyer, just to kind of put I guess a face to the name here or the ratings, he's a 45. So again, I consider in this game like 45, like again, slightly above average. I would probably put average at about 40 in front office football. So he's a slightly above average. You can see kind of some of the things he's good at. Just to clarify on a few of these that may not be so obvious, passing touch is sort of like your short touch passes, screen passes, things like this. Throw quality is like your mid passes. Arm strength is for deep passing. So if you think about Madden, this is like short accuracy or short pass quality, maybe middle and deep. And then these other ones here are kind of self-explanatory, as you can see. Good footwork, I think it'll give us an explanation, but it leads to better future development. Of course, that's going to matter more for your younger players. And so Brian Hoyer has surprised me. He's been really good so far. He started 3 of our 4 games, 70% completion, almost 71, 6-3 touchdown interception ratio. But I think more importantly, his interception percentage is below 2%, which is really nice. 97.3 rating. Like this is what you want out of your backup quarterback. I think any team would be thrilled with this sort of performance from a backup quarterback. So that's really, really good to see. So let's get back into the team stats here because our passing offense has been good. But you can probably guess our pass defense has not been very good. And so we are getting killed by our safety play. I can tell you that. We'll look at that in a few minutes here. Our safeties have been really bad. Like we have 3 safeties who are playing bad, really, really bad. And really, our defensive line has played bad outside of one player, which we'll also get to here. So Tyree Wilson's had a really nice season. I'm going to show you him later because he's potentially lining himself up to be Defensive Rookie of the Year at this point, which is really nice. So if we look at some similar stats here, now from the defensive side, you can see now we don't want to be at the top of these lists, right? Because these are your defensive stats. So we are 4th from the bottom in yards per attempt. We are, again, pretty similar to that in the average yards per game. We've given up 9 touchdowns. We've forced 4 interceptions, which is nice. But again, some of that, I mean, interceptions a lot of times. If you look at like over the course of NFL defenses, interceptions are kind of random. You have a year where it's like, oh yeah, we forced like 11 interceptions. This defense is really good. And then like the next year, you could have the same players that have like 3. It's so random because there's so many other variables that could come into this: tip passes, what quarterbacks you're playing, the weather, things like that. And so it's nice to have forced those, but it's not like I'm saying like, yeah, like we're a team that's forcing interceptions. Like we have 4 interceptions. That's the fact. That's all I can really take from that. Interception percentage, again, pretty high, but it doesn't really mean a whole ton. And we've given up a lot of 20-yard plays. And so like we're not, and we've given up a lot of 40 yards. So you can see like we're just getting killed by chunk plays. There's so many like 2nd and 25 where it's converted, 3rd and 18 converted, 3rd and 12 converted. Like I get nervous when it's like 3rd and anything shorter than like I don't know, 8 yards or something. Like it's terrifying. I mean, we are just or I should say over anything over even 8 yards. I'm just like, oh my gosh, we're not going to get this. We're not going to be able to stop this. And so it's yeah, I think you know what I'm trying to say there. It's just been pretty ugly. So 17 in 4 games that are over 20 yards and 4, so pretty rough. If we look at the QB rating against, we're doing okay in that category. Again, it's kind of middle bottom ish of the league, so that could be better. But we are just getting killed through the air pretty consistently. The third down percentage completion percentage against has been really, really bad. And so again, it's kind of a two. It's like we're playing in like the old Big 12 or like the Pac-12 or something where it's just like pass, 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 just pass yards everywhere. It's been just really, really wild. I did mention Tyree Wilson, so I wanted to kind of get into him. and show you because although our defenses play bad, Tyree Wilson, of course, seventh round or the seventh pick in the draft this year, has played really, really, really well for us, and not just well as a rookie, like well, he's one of the better defenders in the league right now. So he only has 9 tackles through 4 games, but he's got 4 sacks. And again, sacks don't always tell the whole story. Sometimes sacks are like cleanup sacks. You didn't really do the gritty work. What I like to look at is your pass rush percentage. So that's the number of the percentage of plays that a quarterback is either hitting the quarterback, pressuring him, sacking him, and so on. And so to me, if you can get about 10% out of a player, to me, that's a really good player. They're doing a really good job. And so Tyree Wilson's there, especially when we consider him being a rookie. And so this is good. And you're thinking like, well, I don't know, 10%, that's not very good. But that's kind of like every two, series of 4 plays, right? So like if they're running like 3 or 4 plays and certainly like one time per drive at the very least, if not two, if it's a longer drive, they're putting pressure on a quarterback. And sometimes a sack or one big 3rd and 4 rush where the quarterback has a rush throw, that ends the drive. And so that's to me like 10% is good. Where it's not good, because you're probably thinking like, well, 10%, that sounds like it sucks. It sucks when your whole team is only doing that, right? If I can get 10% of a player, like they're kind of doing their part because you spread that 10% across, and now you're kind of hitting in like every third player. So maybe you're creating pressure between your defensive linemen and so on. So Tyree Wilson, just to give you a look here again, playing really, really well. I think certainly better than he's been playing in real life because I don't think he's been very good. I haven't really been following the Raiders, but nonetheless, really happy with Tyree Wilson. So wanted to give him a call out there as you can keep looking at his profile. 4 of our team 6 sacks. So we only have 6 as a team. So yikes, that's not very good. So going back to that, let's go in and well, I think that actually does it show you here the sacks? No, I think that we'll see that later on. So passing breakdown on offense. This is one of the other beautiful things of this game is you can get some really, really deep statistics. I'm not going to go through all these on this particular video here, but there's all kinds of stuff for both the offensive side and the defensive side, which is awesome. Passing details here. So again, you can see sacks. That's what I was looking for. So we've done a pretty decent job of protecting our quarterback. If we go look at passing details on the defense, although Wilson's been really good, you can see we are way down here at the bottom. So I mentioned we have 6 team sacks. Wilson has 4 of them. We are just not getting that pressure. And so, yeah, it's obviously has been an issue here. So I want to see if I can find the pass rush percentage. It's in here somewhere, and I just forget where it is now. Is this a sack percentage? That's different. So sack percentage is different than pressure percentage, right? Anyway, yeah. So moving on, there's a lot that I'm just gonna. I still want to get to a couple other things here. So let's see. Yeah. So I noticed, and while we're on this page here, this is another thing. So so you're thinking like, well, maybe we should blitz more. We'll get some more pressure, and that would make sense. But it almost seems like our team is trying to do that because here we are looking at advanced passing defense. So this is where the Raiders are on defense, and when we blitz, we are giving up yards per attempt. We are one of the worst teams in the league. So we're trying to generate more pressure, but in doing so, now we're giving up those 20-yard passes and those 40-yard passes. Like we have no one who's getting home outside of Tyree Wilson. And so when I was looking through these stats, like that's something that definitely jumped out at me is that we are trying. We're absolutely trying, but the quarterbacks are completing 68% of the passes, but they're getting big chunk plays against us. I mean, to be 3rd worst in the league at this point, it's still early, but again, it's not very promising when we are just trying to figure out what's been going on with the defense for sure. Now, rushing is a different story. Our rushing offense, guys, has been epically bad. It's really surprising. We are dead last in average yards per carry. We are dead last by a mile. Like this would be like, oh, the sliders are messed up if we were playing Madden. Like something needs to change. There's no sliders in this game. This is just like incompetence right now, the way we are running the ball. And it's a little early to say if it's the offensive line. It's a little early to say if it's the running backs. And so we're still trying to make sense of this. Where we are running the ball okay is to the left side, which how beautiful is this that you can actually see this kind of detail. Again, come on, Madden. Left side here, we're running well. Running up the middle, though, dead last in the NFL. You can see it there. Running to the right, I'll flip it so my camera's not in the way. Dead last in the NFL. Absolutely abysmal. So it tells me like, okay, I guess like our left tackle's blocking okay, and that kind of lines up because if you go back to our roster and you look at our offensive line, our best offensive lineman here, as you just can easily see, is Colton Miller. And he's done a good job and he's a good run blocker. So not a huge surprise here. Run block technique, blocking strength. He has been who we've been running behind when we've found success. But guys, when I'm saying it's bad, you're probably still not really understanding what I'm talking about. Josh Jacobs, 55, good player. I've already established that's a good rating. Former first round pick. Look at these numbers. Now he's played in every game. He's the starter. He just for whatever reason 1 week just they had a different set out there on the first play of the game. He's had 48 rushes for 74 yards. That's 1.54 yards per carry. I mean, that's insane. That's so bad. That is so bad. And what makes me think like, could this be Josh Jacobs related? Is that like we picked up Trey Sermon? I signed him kind of before the season started for some running back depth. It hasn't been a lot better, but it has been better, right? So yards per run, very very small sample size, but he's been running okay. He's hurt right now. I think he's questionable. He's probably going to be out again. And so in a very, very small sample size, he's still been able to rush the ball a little bit. If we go back and look at another running back on the team that we talked about, Solomon Sanchez, again, undrafted rookie, 9 carries for 50 yards. So like he's done well. And so it's really hard to figure it out because like it seems, I mean, Josh Jacobs is the best running back on this team, no question. He's proven it. He's been a good player in the NFL, but like our rushing offense has been so bad, like historically bad, and so it's been really really weird. I don't quite know what to make of it, but I guess similar to what I was saying before about the preseason, I'm trying not to get overly worried about that, and let's just kind of go in and just see if it'll start to change a little bit. So time will tell. Our run defense has not been good. It's not terrible, but I can tell you where we're getting destroyed is up the middle here. Again, we're kind of that top 10 worst in the league for rushing up the middle. As far as average, again, not great, kind of in that lower third of the league. Average, we're giving up 140 rushing yards per game. Look at the Rams, by the way, 220 rushing yards per game they're giving up. That is really crazy. So again, sample size, right? It's not just for us, it's for really the whole league. So we're trying to see how that's been going on. Our passing, or I should say, our offensive line has done a pretty good job with the sack percentage. So, right, where you're talking about how we want to prevent this, of course, we want this to be low. And ours is, it's pretty good, 4.5. If we're talking about that 10% range, we're like well below half that. So that's pretty good. Pass protection is held up, and we've needed it when we see our quarterback throwing 56 attempts in a game and things like that. So offensive line really built to protect against the pass, not so much against the run. And I like that that really matters in this game. You really start to kind of see your players take on unique personalities with their style of play, which is great. So pass blocking has been okay. By the way, I mentioned earlier I couldn't find it, but here it is. The our pass rush percentage, third worst in the NFL. So really, really bad. When we do try to add pressure, we're just getting beat up. So like right now, you can clearly see a direction for this team. I don't care if we don't win another single game or if we go to the Super Bowl and have the 31st pick or something. Offense and defensive line seems to be kind of where this team is going to be looking at least right now as we start thinking about these things a little early on. So still really, really early, but uh, if I could fix one thing about this team, yeah, it'd be our offensive line run blocking and it'd be our defense just getting pressure on the quarterback. So you're going to need those things to win in the NFL, especially the latter. So let's see. Scoring opponents' points per game, I wanted to take a look at. That's down here under scoring summary. And so points per game, we are kind of the, middle. I'm not too concerned about that, especially with what we're doing here. But I wanted to look at our opponents' points per game. And let's see, that is somewhere. I'm just forgetting where it is now. Points per game. Oh yeah, points allowed is right next to it. So you can see here, bottom of the league here, really, really bad. If I invert it just to kind of show what order was that fourth worst in the league, we're giving up about 28 points per game. It's just not going to be good. Our total yardage versus opponents. So like we're just like really high scoring, or at least high yardage games. We're not scoring that well because we have injuries and things like that. But like this isn't sustainable, I guess is the point of showing you this. It's just not. We are not going to keep winning games and leading this division at 2-2 by having such a terrible opponent's points per game and the yardage per game. It's just not going to happen that way. And so we're gonna have to see. We're either gonna have to fix some things or like the truth's gonna reveal itself, I guess. Turnover margin, I mean, we're +2, so that's nice. But again, a lot of that is just kind of a random thing. We can't really expect Brian Hoyer to keep playing maybe so clean and so conservative as he has, but nonetheless, it's been working out. So I wanted the last thing I wanted to kind of go through here is to really just kind of looking at a couple player profiles. So we took a look at Jimmy Garoppolo's stat line. I mean, he's been sick. He is unfortunately going to be out the rest of the year, as we mentioned. But again, really, really good player. And then of course Hoyer, who we looked at as well. And so like we're just getting really good quarterback play. And again, I'm calling it out again because like I think it's been one of the key points of this series so far is that we're getting quarterback play where I wasn't really even with Jimmy Garoppolo, I wasn't really expecting. Like if you told me, yeah, one of these 250 overall guys here, whether you're your quarterback or Josh Jacobs, like this isn't a true rating, they're going to play a lot worse. I'd be like, oh, it's going to be Garoppolo, right? Just kind of based on what we're seeing in real life and things like that. And it's been quite the opposite. And so, really happy to see that. Another player I want to call out when we oh, and I know I wanted to show you with those guys is I wanted to show you where they ranked. So we talked it already that they're playing super well, but I want to show you like individually. So if we just do qualifying and we're going to do quarterbacks here and we're going to look at ratings. So again, really small sample size for Garoppolo, but right at the top, and then look who's just below him. You have Brian Hoyer here, who's still on the list, 97. So again, there's a lot of guys in between here, obviously. And I don't know why it's not filtering out. It should be filtering out qualifiers. There we go. So that's going to look a little bit better. So yeah, Brian Hoyer is now here. That's why it was looking a little rough. And then unfortunately, we're not going to see Garoppolo, but he was even better than this. So Hoyer's doing his job. He is certainly not someone that we're blaming or anything like that. He's done really well. Another player to call out is Devontae Adams has played really, really well. So we look at qualifying receivers and we look at yardage. Devontae Adams is right here. He's kind of an interesting mix because look at this. His yards per catch, yards, average yards per target are super low, like especially compared to the guys around him. It's really weird. They throw a lot of screens to him and he just kind of breaks them for yardage. And it's weird because like I don't know why they're using him like that. I don't know if it's more like just Hoyer related, but it's been really wild to see. I mean, he's putting up some nice numbers. He gets so many looks, right? So 60 targets, 45 catches, which has got to be, yeah, he leads the NFL right now in catches. And so he's just getting a lot of action. This is another weird, I don't know, I'm maybe the only person in the world who kind of looks at this ratio, but I like to look at touchdowns caught versus drops. It's really weird. And I kind of like to see like a 2-to-1 ratio. So if he has 5 drops already, I want to see like 10 touchdowns. And so 5 drops in 4 games is a ton. He's dropping a lot. It doesn't make sense. Again, I don't know if like quarterbacks sometimes just don't throw catchable balls. Of course, it has to do with like the defensive coverage and a lot of other things, pressure on the quarterback. But I don't like seeing that. So like Devontae Adams, he's a guy I have shopped. Like you can go in here, you can actually shop a player somewhere. I forget where I even do that now, but you can shop a player, and I wasn't really getting any feedback. Like people didn't want his contract and things like that. So it's kind of an interesting thing to see. And of course, we're leading the division too, so we're not in a huge rush to try and trade our best receiver here. But he has had a really nice year so far. I like this stat here: percentage of routes run with a targeted pass, and so 34%. So he's getting thrown the ball pretty frequently, but they're not completely forcing it to him. And so I thought that was cool. He's on the field a ton, 174 routes already run. And again, such cool stats. Love that we get to see this stuff. And we're not even looking at like advanced receiving. We'll get into that in the next stream probably. So super cool there. I wanted to call him out. I also wanted to call out another player. When we look at tight ends, and you might be thinking like, ooh, it's Michael Mayer time, but it's not Michael Mayer. It's a tight end that I signed for as an undrafted free agent, and he's a fake player, I'm pretty sure. Malcolm Pryor is a tight end I picked up. He played at Ole Miss. He's from Camden, Alabama. He's a 21-year-old tight end who's 6'5", 243 yards. And he's a guy, again, his ratings were kind of like this when I picked him up. I wanted some depth at tight end. Our tight end depth was really bad, so I did make some moves around there. And this dude has been good, and I want to show you how good he's been. So this is all tight ends, right? Not just rookie tight ends. So he is, what is he, sixth or something? Three, four, five, seventh in tight end receiving yards. So he's got 198 yards. But check this out. He's been targeted 19 times. He's made 17 catches. That's 89%. To me, like a decent receiver, and tight ends are going to be a little higher than this because their routes are shorter. But like a decent receiver who you can depend on is going to be like at least 50%, right? They should be at least catching that much. 89%, even for a tight end, especially who's a rookie, is awesome. Yards per catch, really, really good. Again, very, very early here, but really like the early returns so far with Malcolm Pryor. So I wanted to give him some props and call him out. On the defensive side, we already talked about Tyree Wilson, but just to kind of put in perspective where he's at with like sack leaders and things like this. He's down here as a rookie. So we're getting a good rookie play for sure. We're getting some running backs, or at least one running back who's contributing a little. We're getting the tight end. We're getting Tyree Wilson, who's been really good. So again, 9.5 pass rush percentage when we look at qualifiers. I don't know if that's actually looking at qualifiers. It doesn't seem to be. That's kind of. But let's just do defensive ends. So we look at defensive ends here, and he is fourth among ends in total pass rush percentage. So awesome to see. Really, really good start to the season for him. I mentioned earlier in the stream about our safety play. And so I want to talk about this looking at pass coverage here. So we're qualifying safeties here, and we're going to sort by pass defense percentage. Now, I love players who can stay above 80%. If you're right there, certainly higher, 78, like good, you're playing well. 78, serviceable, maybe a little improvement. 80 is what I'm looking for. Let me inverse these and show you the qualified safeties so far through 4 games. And all we have to do is look for Las Vegas players. Now, Christopher Smith is like our third safety. He, plays in like big formations and stuff like that. He's not in all the time. He's only played in 47 plays, but our starter has played in 101, so he's still getting a lot of action. But look at this. Marcus Epps, starter. Trayvon Moehrig, starter. Christopher Smith, again, rotational player. Look at how bad these percentages are. 3 of the worst in the league. And so when we're looking at these like chunk plays we're giving up, we're not getting home, these guys are paying for it. Now, whether it's their fault or not, it's hard to say. Is it the defensive line's fault and these guys are just taking the blame because they're having to run around like chickens with their head cut off? Or are guys so wide open that our defensive line can't get any pressure because the quarterback's throwing immediately because they're not covering deep or whatever, right? So it's really hard to say. It's way too early. And so again, some of this is going to reveal itself. Marcus Epps, like these are good players. 53 overall. He's been in the league for a while. He's 27. Like he's no like spring chicken. Like he's fine. Trevor Mooring, same thing. Good player, 46, second round pick a couple years ago. So like I don't think we just have like some bums playing out there. Even Christopher Smith, like that's serviceable player and he's still growing. And so it's just something I did want to call out because like it's been bad and regardless of small sample size or whose fault it is, it's been bad safety play, at least statistically here when we look at this kind of all important pass defense percentage. Now when we go to our corners, this is what weird. Our corners are kind of the opposite. They're playing really well. So Nate Hobbs already has 2 interceptions. He's one of our starting corners. He's been in 144 plays. He's at 88.4 again. That's probably not going to stay. That's really, really high. But Nate Hobbs has been really, really good for us. And by the way, if you want to look closer at these profiles, just pause the video. You can take a look at the ratings and so on. So he's played really well. Marcus Peters, of course, another starter. He's been in for, 80 plays? Yeah, 80 plays, 86% pass protection there. He's just a total lockdown man-to-man coverage guy here. So he's playing really, really well. Of course, Marcus Peters, a potential Hall of Fame player there. And then even our third corner, who is down this way, Amik Robertson has played really well too. And so 4th round pick from 2020, 25-year-old player. So like we're getting good cornerback play. It's so weird. It's really hard to make sense of it. And again, I guess the point of I'm saying is 4 games just isn't enough. Even in a football season that's only 17 games long, there's just not a lot that you can really kind of pull from this. And so the Raiders were 2-2. you can see we have a game with Green Bay coming up, 2 home games in a row. I think we're going to learn a lot. And we got I guess, kind of a bad Bears team. It's hard to say. I mean, in real life, they're not great. But like these next 3 games are winnable, even though we're hurt and we're not very good. Neither are these teams, at least from what we'd expect going into the season. Like Green Bay is not the Green Bay we're used to. New England's certainly not the New England we're used to. Chicago's not very good. And then by then we'll really have to kind of see. So I think the next 3 games will be key for this team. But again, it's been really fun. I love this game. Front Office Football has been just a classic game. I think I had Front Office Football 2 was my first version, which ironically was published by Electronic Arts. And so it's a really, really cool game, but check it out. Solismic is the name of the company that makes it. Jim Gindren is the developer. And if you just Google search Front Office Football, you'll find it. It's on Steam as well. There's no multiplayer yet. I'm certain for, I shouldn't say certain, at least I'm assuming for Front Office Football 10, if there is one in a few years, it'll have multiplayer built in. It doesn't sound like Jim has any plans to do that with Front Office Football 9. So it's a great time to get into that game, to give it a shot, get comfortable with it. Admittedly, I know it's not the prettiest game. You're probably looking at this going like, what in the hell is all this? It's not great looking, but like once you get used to the navigation and stuff, I'm still enjoying it. To me, I'll take this over Madden. I really will. I'm to the point of just really burnt out with Madden. I'm just not enjoying it. I don't think it's a very good game right now, unfortunately. And while I know this game isn't like the prettiest ever, it's so fun to take on the role of a general manager, or if you want, you could be a head coach general manager. I don't really like get into the play calling stuff, but if that's your thing, guys, there's a whole other element to this game that we haven't even talked about. There's all kinds of stuff. Of course, we're going to get into the off season in this series. And so like when the actual draft and stuff, when we start getting mock drafts and we start getting just reports on players, that's going to be really, really cool. So the next episode, I'll probably be ripping at least through until like the midway point of the season, if not more, maybe even the entire season. We'll have to kind of see. So leave me your feedback on that. I'm trying to keep the pacing going. I know like the streams aren't always like, oh wow, this is like super. It's a lot of stats we're digging through and things like that. But I'm just really, really excited to see. I mean, we didn't even get into some of the things that are happening. Like we have uh, injuries around the league and so on that have taken place, and so there's still a lot going on, and I think that we're going to see just a lot more as we get deeper into this game. But I encourage you to check out the game. I think it's really, really awesome. Look here, by the way, players who need surgery. It's not really let me sort it, but anyway, I know what's his face, the quarterback for the Chargers. Why am I drawing a blank on his name here? Keenan Allen's hurt for them. Let me see. Why Herbert, right? Josh Herbert or something. Totally drawing a blank on his name, but I know he's out with surgery because we ended up playing their backup. So another reason why we got kind of a lucky win there. But great, great game. You can see this the depth. Look at my injuries, by the way, right? I mean, this is what football actually looks like. If you've actually seen an actual, yeah, Justin Herbert, there we go. If you've actually seen a injury report in the NFL across the league, it doesn't look like Madden, guys. It looks like this, and so really, really cool. But torn foot ligament, this is huge news. So there's all kinds of like league news. That's what I was trying to get at that we haven't even gone over. We're gonna get into that next time. So to go back to the point I was making like 3 hours ago, if you have suggestions on pacing, things you want to see a little bit deeper, let me know. I have a general idea what I want to be doing in these next few episodes, but definitely share that feedback with me. And yeah, give me a like for the video. I know it's not Madden and that sort of thing, but I think it's kind of fun to get into some of these other games, whether it's this or Super Mega Baseball. And I think we're going to be doing a little bit more of that as well. So I appreciate you guys checking out the video. But until the next episode, I'll see you then, and I'll be keeping an eye out there in the chat. Thanks a lot for watching.